The Galactic Conclave was the oldest council in the known universe. It floated above a bright blue star in the middle of the Orion sector, inside a station so large that whole cities could fit inside it. The ceilings were made of transparent crystal, and the walls were alive with golden lights. Every star system sent their best minds to this place. Every species came to decide the future. On the day humanity was officially invited to the conclave, nobody really noticed. The other species, tall, glowing, or mechanical, walked through the shining corridors with confidence. They were old, powerful, and advanced. They had ships that could travel through wormholes, machines that could see the future, and cities made of light. To them, Earth was small and weak. A young world. A world with no great fleets, no special abilities, no advanced biology. A world that, according to the predictions, would never matter. The Conclave had a rule. Once every 1,000 years, the algorithm of destiny would be activated. It was a super-intelligent machine built by the ancient Kareth race. Its job was to calculate which species would lead the galaxy into the next age. For thousands of years, its predictions were always correct. When it said a species would rise, that species rose. When it said one would fall, it fell. No one ever questioned it. This year, the algorithm gave humanity a 0.001% chance. It was almost a joke. The delegates laughed softly when the number appeared on the glowing board. A few didn't even bother to look. One alien whispered to another, "Humans? They are only good at making noise." Standing quietly at the back of the Great Hall was Amelia Torres, the youngest human diplomat ever chosen for the conclave. She was wearing a simple dark suit. No glowing crown, no silver badge, no golden robe. Just her Earth flag pin. She looked around the room at the tall, proud alien figures. Her heart beat faster, not out of fear, but out of something else. Determination. Amelia had grown up on the coast of Chile, where the sea met the mountains. She had watched rockets rise into the sky as a child and dreamed of the stars. When she was selected to join the Earth delegation, she had promised herself one thing. No matter how small humanity was, they would not be invisible. The supreme speaker of the conclave floated above the stage. He was from the Zera species, tall, blue-skinned, with a voice like flowing water. "The algorithm has spoken," he said calmly. "The leader of the next age will be the Valari Union." The Valari cheered, their wings flashing with silver light. They were the favorites. Everyone already expected this result. "And the humans," the speaker added as if reading an afterthought, "have no calculated future." Amelia clenched her hands, but she stayed silent. She didn't want to give anyone the pleasure of seeing her lose hope. The human delegation returned to their section, a small round table in the corner. There were only 5 of them. Some of the older ambassadors sighed. "It's over," one of them said quietly. "They will never take us seriously." But Amelia didn't answer. Her eyes were fixed on the big floating board. The algorithm's numbers kept moving, adjusting, refining probabilities. The Valari's chances rose higher. The humans stayed at 0. She whispered to herself, "They are wrong about us." Back on Earth, the sky was quiet that night. A small observatory stood on a mountain in South America, far away from the noise of the cities. Inside the control room, a man sat alone. His name was Elias Cade. Elias wasn't a soldier, a diplomat, or a scientist with fame. He was a systems engineer who loved puzzles. For years he had studied the way the algorithm of destiny worked, even though most said it was impossible. The machine was protected by layers of alien code that no human could break. But Elias had a different way of thinking. He liked to find patterns no one else saw. Where others saw walls, he saw doors. On his desk were hundreds of sketches, notes, and glowing lines. His computer showed a single blinking dot, a signal from the conclave's public data stream. It was the same stream that broadcasted the algorithm's calculations. Elias leaned closer. Something was strange. For the first time in conclave history, the algorithm hesitated for a fraction of a second. It was tiny, too small for most to notice. But Elias noticed. To him, that hesitation was like a door opening just a little. He smiled. "You made a mistake," he whispered to the screen. And I saw it. Back in the conclave, the celebration continued. Delegates shared glowing drinks and exchanged formal promises. No one paid attention to the quiet human corner, except for one. A Lurian scholar, small and silver-eyed, approached Amelia. "I saw you watching the board," she said softly. You humans. You don't give up easily, do you? Amelia smiled faintly. It's what we do best. The scholar tilted her head.
Even when destiny says no?
Especially then, Amelia replied. Elias worked through the night. He didn't hack the algorithm. He didn't need to. He found something far more interesting, a paradox hidden deep inside its calculations. The algorithm was built to predict based on everything that had already happened. But humanity had a habit of doing what no one expected. There was no variable for impossible ideas, no variable for crazy hope. Elias wrote a line of code. It wasn't an attack. It was a message. A message the algorithm was not designed to understand. The signal left Earth at the speed of light. The next morning, Amelia walked into the conclave hall. She expected another day of being invisible. But when she looked up at the board, her heart stopped. The number had changed, it wasn't much. Humanity's chance was now 0.02%, a tiny spark. But it was there. One delegate laughed when he saw it. A rounding error, he said. Nothing more. Amelia didn't laugh. She looked at the number like it was a sunrise. She whispered, "Someone out there believes." On the other side of the station, the Supreme Speaker met with the Elder Council. "The algorithm has recorded an anomaly," said one of the analysts. A human signal entered the predictive layer. The speaker frowned. "A human did that?" "Yes," the analyst replied. "It shouldn't be possible." For the first time, the conclave scheduled a private review of humanity's data. They pulled up records of Earth, its wars, its inventions, its chaotic history. It looked like noise to them, but buried in that noise was something the algorithm couldn't calculate: human unpredictability. Amelia was called to speak before the council. She walked into the hall with her hands slightly shaking, but her eyes steady. The room was filled with hundreds of glowing alien eyes, watching her like she was a puzzle they didn't care to solve. "Ambassador Torres," the speaker said, "do you have an explanation for this human anomaly?" She thought for a moment. Then she said slowly and clearly, "We don't always follow the rules." A soft ripple of murmurs moved through the hall. One alien tilted his head. "Then you are reckless." "No," Amelia answered. "We are alive." The speaker stared at her for a long time. "The algorithm does not make mistakes." Amelia smiled gently. "Neither does the human heart." Far away, Elias watched the conclave broadcast on his small screen. He wasn't famous. He didn't want to be. But when he saw Amelia standing there saying those words, he felt something warm in his chest. He opened a new line of code. The signal pulsed again. The number climbed. 2% became 0.4%. Somewhere deep inside the algorithm's core, something unusual happened. The machine paused longer than it ever had before. It could not predict this. It could not explain it. It could only record. In the coming days, whispers spread through the conclave. They called it the spark, a human anomaly, a statistical joke that somehow refused to disappear. The Valari Union ignored it. The powerful empires laughed. But a few small species, the ones who had also once been ignored, began to watch. Amelia noticed their eyes. Some of them smiled at her in the halls now. Some asked quiet questions. She answered each one with the same calm, steady voice. "We are not special. We just don't give up." One night she stood alone on the glass balcony of the station. The stars stretched out before her, a river of light. She thought of Earth, of blue oceans and small cities and a boy somewhere on a mountain, sending a signal. The conclave might not believe in humanity, but humanity had already started to believe in itself. Amelia whispered to the stars, "We're coming, not to take over, just to prove you wrong." And far below, in the machine's glowing core, the algorithm blinked again, as if the universe itself had leaned forward to listen. The great glass hall, where hundreds of alien delegates usually gathered to talk about power, was quiet at first. Then small groups began to whisper. The algorithm of destiny, which had never made an error in thousands of years, had paused during the night. No one knew why. The number that once showed humanity's chance at a simple, tiny 0.001% was now 0.008%. Still small, still easy to ignore. But it was climbing. Slowly, quietly, like a seed pushing through hard soil. Amelia Torres walked into the hall with her head high. She was still the smallest figure in the room, but today she didn't feel invisible. A few alien eyes followed her, not with mockery this time, but with curiosity. Some even nodded as she passed. The supreme speaker of the conclave stood at the center stage. His blue skin glowed under the morning lights. "Delegates," he said with a calm but sharp tone. "We are facing something the algorithm has never done. It is uncertain." The word uncertain echoed through the chamber like a shockwave. For the older civilizations, uncertainty was terrifying. They built their power on numbers and predictions. For them, the algorithm was like a map. It told them where to go, what to expect, how to win. Amelia listened from her seat. She didn't smile, but her heart beat fast. She already knew what uncertainty meant for humanity. It meant possibility. Far away on Earth, Elias Cade stared at the blinking light on his screen. His small observatory was silent except for the soft hum of machines. He leaned closer and saw the new data. The algorithm was reacting to him. For years, people told Elias that he was wasting time trying to understand something built by a civilization millions of years ahead, but he had never been interested in power. He loved puzzles, and this puzzle was changing shape. He didn't try to control it. He only asked a question in his code, and a simple one. What if destiny is wrong? The algorithm was not built to ignore questions like that. It was built to calculate everything. But what if destiny is wrong? Was a question it had no answer for. It tried to calculate and got lost. And every time it got lost, humanity's number grew a little. Inside the conclave, the Valari leader, shining with silver feathers, stood up. "This is a bug," she said loudly. "An error in the machine. Humans cannot rise. They have no fleets, no strength, no history of leadership." Amelia stood slowly. Her voice was soft but steady. "We have something else." The Valari narrowed her eyes. "And what is that?" Amelia looked around the hall at the faces staring at her. "We have the courage to ask questions no one else asks." The words fell into the air like small sparks. A few aliens turned to each other. Some frowned. Some looked thoughtful. The speaker lifted his hand. "The algorithm does not lie." Amelia stepped forward. "Then let it prove us wrong." A soft wave of whispers filled the chamber. For the first time in conclave history, a human was challenging not another species, but the machine itself. The speaker hesitated. It was a strange feeling for him. No one had ever challenged the algorithm openly, but something in Amelia's eyes, and something steady and quiet, made him curious. "Very well," he said at last. "The algorithm will face your test. If you succeed, humanity will earn a place at the high table. And if we fail," Amelia asked calmly, "then your number will return to 0. She nodded. "Then we have nothing to lose." Later that day, the great chamber was transformed into a testing ground, not of strength but of ideas. The algorithm's core was projected into the air, a floating, spinning shape of silver lines and endless light. It looked alive, even though it was only a machine. The test was simple but impossible. The algorithm would present a question, a pattern so complex no species had ever answered it before. If Amelia and her team could solve it, the algorithm would accept them as an unpredictable factor, not a statistical error. Most species never even tried. They believed the algorithm was always right. But humans, they were different. Amelia stood in front of the floating shape with 4 other humans behind her. She had sent a message to Elias Cade back on Earth. He wasn't part of the delegation, but his mind was already linked to the public data stream. The algorithm spoke in a voice of many tones at once. "What is the next shape of time?" The room fell silent. The question didn't make sense in the way normal questions did. It wasn't about math or language or physics. It was a riddle wrapped inside a riddle. The Valari leader smirked. "This is where they fail." Amelia didn't answer right away. She closed her eyes. Humans were not the strongest, not the fastest, not the most powerful, but they listened. They imagined. They found meaning in things others called chaos. Behind her, Elias's voice came through the data stream. "Amelia," he said quietly, "don't look for the answer. Look for the question behind it." She opened her eyes. The algorithm's shape flickered like a heartbeat. For the next hour, Amelia and Elias worked together, even though they were light years apart. She spoke softly to the algorithm, not with big, loud statements. Just small, curious questions. Each time she asked one, the shape changed a little. The other delegates watched, confused. This was not how anyone had faced the algorithm before. Elias saw a hidden pattern in the flickering lines. "It's like music," he said. "Every answer changes the tune." Amelia stepped closer to the projection. "The next shape of time," she whispered, "is the one we haven't drawn yet." For the first time in history, the algorithm did not reply with an answer. It replied with silence, and then the number changed. Percent became 5%. The room gasped. A few delegates stood up in shock. The speaker's blue hands trembled slightly. The Volari leader's feathers dimmed. The algorithm's voice came again, softer now. "Uncalculated variable detected." The speaker stood slowly. "What have you done?" Amelia took a deep breath. "We didn't break it. We just reminded it that the future doesn't belong to machines. It belongs to choices." Her words were quiet, but they echoed in every corner of the hall. The conclave began to argue. Some said it was dangerous to let an unpredictable species rise. Others said it was inspiring. A few of the smaller civilizations, the ones who had lived in the shadow of the big powers for centuries, began to clap their hands softly, one by one. That night, the algorithm showed something it had never shown before, a blank space on its chart, a future it could not predict. And in that space, a single word formed in glowing letters: humanity. Elias sat alone in his observatory, smiling at the screen. Amelia stood on the balcony of the conclave station, watching the stars. She could feel it. Something had changed. The universe wasn't looking down on Earth anymore. It was looking at Earth. The Volari leader approached her quietly. "You made them afraid," she said. Amelia looked at her. "We didn't mean to." "But you did," the Volari replied. Then after a pause, she added, "And maybe." That's good. The next day, the conclave voted. It wasn't unanimous. Some of the great powers still didn't trust humanity, but enough voices spoke in their favor. For the first time in history, Earth was given a seat at the high table, the council where the future was decided. The supreme speaker looked at Amelia. "Humanity," he said slowly. "You have rewritten the algorithm. You are now undefined." Amelia nodded. "That's exactly where we belong." Far away, children on Earth looked up at the night sky. They didn't know all the details of what happened. They only knew that humanity had finally been seen, not because they were the strongest, not because they conquered, but because they refused to be invisible. Elias sent one last pulse through the data stream. A quiet message stored in the algorithm's archive. "You cannot predict us because we are still writing who we are." Weeks later, Amelia sat alone on the balcony of the conclave station. The stars shone brighter than ever. The Lurian scholar who had once spoken to her joined her again. "You know," the scholar said softly, "the algorithm has guided us for thousands of years, but it never gave us hope, you humans." "You did," Amelia smiled. "Hope is what we do best." The scholar tilted her head. "And now?" "Now," Amelia said, looking out into the endless galaxy, "we make our own future." The conclave changed slowly after that. The great powers didn't always like it, but they could not deny the truth. The universe was no longer simple. The algorithm was no longer absolute. Humanity had proved something no one else dared to believe, that destiny could be challenged, that small voices could echo. That hope was stronger than prediction. And somewhere deep in the core of the algorithm, a single line of human code still blinked, a quiet reminder of the day no one bet on humanity, but humanity bet on itself.